everyone to Ladies' Night. This is whatever week, whatever day. I have no idea.
It's
We're
almost
living our
May,
best
but
life.
it's really April. Who knows?
Yes, and we are still here. I don't know when we won't be here, but we will keep coming to you as long as the church building is not allowed to be open. So we pray that will be soon. But right now, obviously, you probably know Madison County's numbers have gone up, so we might see more of us. So
Lucky you.
Last week, for everyone who tuned in, thank you for watching. We did our wedding special, I guess you could call it.
Yep.
So that was lots of fun. We can't wait to hear your wedding stories and all those fun stories that come from the wedding. I'm sure many of you guys have funny stories that happened at your wedding. So, but today we're going to talk about life after the wedding, and kind of when the honeymoon is over, I guess you could say, kind of that timing where we're all out at now. That life after the wedding. So yeah, we're going to talk about a negative, a positive that I kind of found out about our spouse and surprised us about marriage, and then we're going to give you some books that kind of helped in our marriage, and then we'll talk a little bit about our faith life in our marriage. So that's the plan, and we will try to keep it short. We
For those who have told us that it's too long, our husbands have said that. They're just jealous that we can talk with each other naturally.
And
no.
you are.
We're going to get really ugly. So that's why we're starting with
This
an
is why it's called
unpleasant.
after the wedding.
We're going to start with an unpleasant surprise, and then we'll go to a pleasant surprise.
And you are more than one thing I do when I am like listening to this stuff is I will just listen to it.
Yeah.
Kind of like you do a podcast and not really watch it. So you really don't need to see our faces.
Right.
Though,
I didn't shower today.
I did, but I didn't yesterday, so
I went to PT and I was kind of gross. I'm like, well, this is what's going to have to be.
whatever.
It's part of my routine. So if I don't do it, I feel really weird.
So Jessica's the best hygiene.
So anyway, that's what's going on today.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to start with negatives. So does anybody want to go first?
I'll kick it off.
All
Go
right.
for it.
My husband's a slob. Disclaimer, Nate never lived by himself before
Never, ever.
we got married. He lived with his parents. He went to Purdue. He lived in a frat house. So then he lived in an apartment with some of his friends. And one of his friends is so neat and tidy that it kept Nate neat and tidy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got married. And I was mind blown by the amount of filth one person could produce. And like, we made this rule. We're like, this is going to be so cute. I'll cook, you clean. It's going to be great. And we didn't have a dishwasher in our house. We still don't have a dishwasher. Ask my fifth grade from last year. I sinned because of dishes. And I'd cook, and then Nate would let them soak. And then one time he said to me, well, I just don't see filth. It's everywhere. Normal people clean their bathrooms. So we have resolved that by getting an app. It's called Tody, Tody. And every room in our house has a thing. And Nate's the one who actually found it because, well, I think he thought he was going to die. And he'll tell him, like, you need to clean the toilet. You need to wipe down the sink. And then it also gives you satisfaction of showing you how clean your house is.
Oh, wow.
On a scale of red to green. Green is good, red is bad. And he has said since getting the app, it's helped him just understand, like, hey, the mirror, you should be able to see yourself. Wipe it down. Get out of the shower, spray the spray. So between that and using Grove, which ships our cleaning supplies, and he feels like he's not getting cancer from them, has helped.
Perfect.
He's like a kid. It's like a brand new cleaning thing. He's like, woohoo.
I love that.
So because he likes getting mail, because that would be Steven's like big
every
one.
month,
I didn't know.
whatever we get shows up, and Nate's like, oh, what new Grove thing? And then he'll be like, I just enjoy cleaning the bathroom more because I don't think I'm dying of chemicals. So our biggest shock, like out of all the shocks, and there were probably plenty, was how do you not pick up after yourself? Why are there pants and jackets and socks and random things everywhere? Like, I'm not saying I'm the cleanest person in the world, but Nate takes it to another extreme. Shoes everywhere. But Tody, we've gotten better.
Tody, I like that.
Tody, Tody.
I've never heard of that before.
Yep, you set it up by room. It's only you have to pay for it to be on more than one phone, so we just keep it on Nate's.
Because he's the one that needs the help.
And then if I do something in the day, I'll tell him and he can check it all off. And
Oh, cool beans.
so that's how we took care of our cleanliness issue.
Teamwork.
Cool beans.
That's awesome.
It is.
So I was going to talk about the habits that my husband has. There's one in particular. So let me ask you guys, where do you clip your nails? Like your fingernails.
I'm pretty bad about this.
I am
Okay,
too,
see,
so
so then
Nate, on the other hand, sits in like the tub and he's like, I'm doing
Okay.
this so that nails aren't all over the place.
Well, so I do it in the bathroom. That's where I
Oh,
would
yes,
do
I'm
it.
usually in
Like
the bathroom.
somewhere in the bathroom, like
Or outside.
or outside. That would be another option that you should take. Steven will come into the living room and he will do it sitting at the sofa. Why? Because then you have toenails or fingernails sitting on the sofa or on the floor. And then there's been times where like he'll say, Penny, come here. And then Penny will eat them.
Oh.
Like that is gross. So that like personal habits. So I will mention that one quickly and move on because that one still
It's
makes
just
me
extra
gag.
calcium, right?
Yeah, I guess
have
so.
no idea
I
what our
guess.
nails are made out of.
That's good.
I think you're right. So I think the big, that's the thing
Dog
that's
treats.
bothered me throughout. Like, why are you clipping your nails in the living room?
I like to do it over the trash can.
Yeah, me too.
I'm usually in the bathroom.
Yeah. So another one, kind of a unpleasant surprise, is the fact that when we go grocery shopping, we can't decide on brands of things. Like he prefers butter, and I can't believe it's not butter. It's not real butter, but it's margarine. So we still buy different types of brands of groceries.
Yeah.
And so we can't compromise on that, which is fine. We've looked past it. Like, it's fine. The
Yeah,
biggest.
Ours is like mayonnaise or Miracle Whip. Are
Yep,
you a mayonnaise
that's ours
person or a
too.
Miracle Whip
Yep, I like
person?
Miracle Whip. and he
Thankfully,
likes
we were both
mayonnaise.
Miracle Whips, but otherwise we probably would have had to buy
Right.
separate.
Right. I think the biggest thing is that with an unpleasant surprise, and I kind of knew this going into our marriage, he's a spender and I'm a saver.
Oh, I did that too.
So again, just those like little habits that when you're coming together in your marriage, you don't want to compromise on certain things. So it's the fact of like accepting it, but especially like if he's a spender and I'm a saver, we've talked a lot about like, okay, we need a separate bank account that only has my name on it so that we can say, okay, we're putting $200 into this account this month.
Mm.
I'm not touching it because I know I won't, and he won't be able to get it. So that's kind of,
That's a big one though.
Right.
It's hard because especially when we first got married, Nate was a spender. And like, the things we could spend money on. Now, sometimes I do that to my fans. I'm like, if I get excited, Nate will just go buy it for me.
because he's like, I have
yes,
permission,
we
I
can
do
spend
it.
money. Yes. But saver spender.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
So money, and those just little personal habits. That's been the most unpleasant surprises. Is just realizing that this person you've gotten married to is not your family. You don't have
Mhm.
these habits that are set, and everyone's on the same page.
Mhm.
And then you learn that these other people have these other different habits that you have to get used to.
Yes.
So
Two very different family of origins can definitely,
Mhm.
bring a lot of.
Yeah.
I will do two. The first one is that I had known about, I guess you could say, but in your la world of love, you think, I'll be fine with it. Was
Yep.
my husband snores, and he snores loudly, and so he has informed me that I snore too, and I have woken myself up snoring. So yes, he's right, I do snore, but I thought I could sleep through it. I thought, I'm sure I can sleep through snoring. I'll be fine. It'll be okay. I could not sleep through snoring. So there are times where just so the sake that we both get enough sleep, that we do not sleep in the same bed, because otherwise we just don't get enough sleep. And he's had the sleep studies done and stuff for sleep apnea, and he can tell you that story if he wants to about his sleep apnea test.
I hope it comes up in man up.
It might. But But yes, that was probably the biggest surprise, is just realizing that, oh, I can't, this is hard. I can't sleep in the
Right.
same bed because I'm not getting any sleep. And then I'm tired and cranky, and he's tired and cranky because he's trying not to snore. So that was quite the surprise. That unfortunately, he's tried different ways. And so sometimes we just sleep in separate.
Well, and it's not something that, like,
You can control.
right, it's not like a mindset like, I can totally get over this. Well, like, you're not able to sleep.
Yes, yeah. And I should have known that, because when we would go on camping trips with my parents, so my two brothers had one tent, and then I slept in the same tent with my parents, and my dad snored, and I always struggled with sleeping. So I should have realized it, but I thought,
Love conquers all.
Exactly. I've tried earplugs before. Yeah, I'm sure I have loss of hearing due to volume of.
But see, I wouldn't want that to be like the deal breaker,
Yeah.
like, oh, you snore, I'm sorry.
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing. And my other one, we've been married 15 years, so I'm sure there are people out there who've been married much longer than we have that are watching this, so God bless you. But one thing I really, especially after our cruise, I just walked away going, marriage is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting marriage to be this hard. It's a blessing, don't get me wrong, but it is hard. Kind of that blending of these two sinful human beings trying into one, because that's what we are. We become one, but we have very different ways of doing things. We have very different thought processes. So I was shocked at how hard marriage could get, and the ups and downs, the roller coaster. How sometimes you're on a high and it just feels like you're so in love, and there's other times where we've kind of made the commitment not to bring up the word divorce, but I mean, there's times where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can go one more day.
Yeah.
And usually when you step away from the situation, it gets better. But it's an up and down roller coaster ride that you have seasons where they're great, you have seasons where it's not so great, but it's just hard. And the way we've overcome that is relying on the commitment we made before God and the witnesses, and just knowing that, with His help, we'll get through it, and lots of conversation. I will say on our cruise, the one thing, it was the greatest thing we've done for our marriage since we've been married. It was not like peaches and cream. It was not like we had rough.
Cruise.
Yes, we loved where we were at. It was nice and warm in February, but we had some really hard conversations that we had to talk about, because in our busyness of our life with our kids, especially with sports, we just hadn't connected hardly at all for a long time. And so I guess, having those tough conversations helped us a lot then. Finding one thing with this is we don't have all that sports stuff to go to, so now we can have hard conversations again. But having those hard conversations and trusting, holding on to that commitment, because sometimes it's the only thing that gets you through. So
Absolutely.
I remember it was when Steven and I were dating, and maybe even after when we got engaged and stuff, and Steven had always said, like, divorce isn't going to happen. Like, it's not an option. Mm-hmm. So, like, if we decide that this isn't something we want to do, like, we need to decide now, because I'm not a believer in divorce, and, like, I'm not a believer in divorce either.
Right.
And so just knowing that going in, like, knowing that you're committed to each other, like you said, and, like, you if you're in that situation where you're struggling and you're fighting and you're butting heads, like, to step away and come back and realize, like, okay, we are still in this together. But it's hard because, like, growing up, my parents would fight. Mm-hmm. Like, they would have arguments. They'd have to, like, leave the room and go to different parts of the house. And his parents were the same way. But, like,
it's different.
No, like, it's different when you're in that situation in your own marriage and seeing, like, how can you get through it? It's really weird to, I guess, compare yourselves to other relationships that you've seen that close, but also just knowing, like, you got to stick it out.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to hear. And I always think when you hear someone who's been married for 50, 60 years, like at their big anniversary, and one of the things, like, I have yet to hear Some of them might, but I have yet to hear any of them say that it wasn't the best thing they've ever done in their life. How
Right.
proud they are of their marriage and how far they've made it and how in love they are still with their spouse. And I know they've had to have the same issues
yeah.
and problems that we've had. Like, that's my goal, is to get to
Yeah.
year 50 and be like, wow, I'm so glad we did that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we stuck it out, even through those hard times, because this
Right.
is the best thing.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Ask the 50 and 60
Yeah.
year anniversary people how they did it.
Even like though, like my parents have been married 30 years, and I just think about it, I'm like, dude, like my dad and Nate are a lot alike. So I'm like, he's got to be annoying to you.
Yeah.
Like to me, my dad's hilarious. My dad is so funny, but like, my mom had to live with that and raise
Right.
children with that. I'm like,
Yes.
oh,
Well, and my
it's a
mom,
miracle.
my mom, she said this too. Like, she has lived longer with my dad
Than her.
than she has lived with her parent. Like that, she lived with her parents, and so to commit yourself to that, like, I don't want to say the second part of your life, like, you know,
Yeah.
after moving out of your family unit that you grew up with, and then shifting into this new second life. But then to realize you've lived in that second part of your life longer than where you began, like,
Wow.
that's crazy to think about.
And I think you made a good point at the beginning when you said it's two different families coming together. The fact of the matter is, your parents were two different families who
Yeah.
brought up this family.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, it's just so mind blowing because you're so used. The way my family did things was just very normal.
Right.
But I look at like my mom and my dad's family. They're like, Nate and I are blessed. Our families are in a lot of ways very similar. But like my mom and dad's family were like
Very
two opposite sides of the world.
Mine
It's
too.
crazy to think. So
Crazy.
blessings. Is that what we're going next?
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep us on track. We're proving the boys tonight. So
We can do it under 40 minutes, right?
we can do it. So I'll go. A pleasant surprise. Nate goes along with all my shenanigans. Like, he doesn't ever look at me and go, no, honey, that's a bad idea. Even when I'm like, isn't this going to be so cute? He just goes, so cute. Like,
so supportive. That's
always
so nice.
supportive. And, like, always, like, Nate is just a sweet guy. Like, in the end of the day, like, he was at the store. He's so funny. But it's like stupidity funny. Like, what kind of tortilla shells do I need to buy? I'm like, I don't know, we're having fajitas. Pick one that looks like fajita size. And he literally comes home with two sizes. One says great for burritos. One says great for soft tacos and fajitas. But everything on the phone with me was anything else, and I said, I could really go for a pop because I picked up a caffeine habit since quarantine. And he walks
Oh,
in,
no.
he's like, look, I found you a glass bottle of Coke. Well, like, he's like, isn't this fun?
Make it more
Like,
exciting.
He just always does things to make it more fun. And like, if like I think about our first wedding anniversary, and I was like, do you want to go pumpkin picking? Like, this man had zero desire to go to a pumpkin patch, but he did it because he knew it was going to be worth it. And he's like, yes. And he's like, okay, I know exactly what pumpkin. And then like, he was taking it just as seriously as I am. But like, he dyed Easter eggs with me. Like, won't this be fun? He's like, oh my God. My new thing is I want to get a van and make it into a camper.
Nice.
And I'm like, won't this be fun? He's like, you can see him like, this is the worst idea.
He would enjoy it though.
But you
Like,
know he
come
would love
on.
it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you're not. And he's like he sends me a link about him, like, see, I knew you were researching. He goes along with all my shenanigans.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else would. Besides Nate, the things I make him do.
Oh, so even sending you that little link shows that he's thinking about it and he cares about what you're.
Yeah. It didn't help that I sent him like multiple links. But he's
That's
like,
fine.
look, you can just buy it and it won't be cute and then you can make it cute. I'm like, oh, so fun.
Your next project.
Yeah, he said, we'll buy a house and then you can get a van. I was like, yay!
So now we have to find her a house.
And someone who wants to give me the money to buy it.
Right.
But yes, then I'll get a van. It'll be so cute. Driving around with my bed in the back.
Take your dogs for rides too.
I thought driving to Michigan and Indiana would be so nice if you just be like, I'm sleepy, pull over, take a little siesta, pull back over.
Perfect.
It's going to be big.
Good job, Nate. Good job.
He is good about those things.
I'd say the nicest, pleasant surprise. Going into marriage, I did not know that Stephen was such a handyman. I didn't know that he could fix plumbing if we needed it fixed, or if we were going to buy a house and our cat peed on the drywall, that he could fix the drywall and make it better. So like, and if he doesn't know how to do something, he will YouTube it and watch videos, teach himself how to do it, and then he'll just do it. So like, I don't have to fix anything. I remember growing up, my mom needed something fixed, she would figure it out and fix it because my dad would be out in the field or, you know, doing other things. And so in the back of my head, I was thinking, I'm going to have to figure out how to do all this stuff because I don't know if my husband's going to do it for me. Nope. He just does everything.
Awesome.
So that's
Steven
been
is
the nicest, like just when we had our house in Illinois, we did a whole bunch of different things in that house. And then we came out here to Nebraska, and if you've ever seen the house that we bought, it was a maze walking into it. Did not know how it was going to look, but we ended up tearing out 2 kitchenettes. We built up walls so that we actually had 3 kids' bedrooms instead of 1. And so, like, it's just crazy, all the stuff that he knows how to do because he's taught himself how to do it. So get yourself a guy who knows how to do those things. Pleasant surprise?
Yeah, I think for me it was cooking. My husband can cook, and he cooks really well. And the fact, okay, my kids won't, now that they're older, they'll eat my cooking because they know it's rude not to. But when they were younger, like, my cooking I was like, oh, but Dad's cooking? Sure, they'll eat that.
So your kids run in, they're like, who's cooking tonight? Mom is. Oh.
And that's the only problem is usually me cooking. So they've kind of had to get used to it. But
Right.
when he does cook, I'm like, wow. And he doesn't just, like, do little things. Like, he'll make elaborate stuff, and I'm like, wow, great.
That is a good
That's
thing.
good.
Steven is
Yeah.
the same way. That like cooking. Did not know he
Yes.
could cook. He loves to cook. I like to bake, but he loves to cook.
Yeah,
so
that's-
you and
that's
Steven
why I
and
do the
BJ are
baking.
like
Yeah, I do
they
the
should
baking.
get married.
'cause-
That would be weird and not right with the church. But like
Yeah.
2 peas in a pod.
Yeah, I do the baking and he does the cooking. Though he could probably bake, I think, if he
Yeah.
really put his mind to it. But yeah, he'll look up a recipe, and if we have it,
Mhm.
I'll go for it. The hardest thing for me, though, with that is giving up the rights to the grocery cart. Because,
Yeah.
like, especially now when we're trying to not go into the stores,
Yeah.
like, that's hard for me to do. I still want to know, like, I have in my head the weekly
Right.
things we need.
Right.
And so when he's adding to it, I see it going up, the bill going up,
Right.
and then I'm like, yes, those things. So, yeah, that was a great positive. There are many other positives. One of the things that I was trying to think about, that's terrible, I shouldn't have had such a hard time to think about positives, but the one thing I had said a couple weeks ago is just about that, you know, that companionship, having my back. I think at least for me, that has been huge, knowing that, especially since we're not around my family, or
Yeah.
I have their support, but I don't have their physical presence
Right.
with me, and to know that my husband's got my back, that he is with me, that he's on my side.
Yeah.
Has been a positive. BJ's always been that. He's very supportive too if I want to do stuff. Like, he's never ever been, oh, you can't do that. You know, he's very supportive of me. I don't have shenanigans. No, I wish I did. I wish I was more creative.
Poor Nate. I do think about shit like that poor guy.
He knew what he was getting
He
into.
had to have. When we first started dating, I was like, oh, you can build things? Excellent. He's like building me like classroom library things and
That's
hanging gutters. And I'm like,
I think that's great.
oh, poor Nader.
It's for him. It probably adds a lot of spark to his life. You
It
know,
does.
the fact
Because
that,
he never knows what's coming.
Yeah.
So maybe he likes that kind of.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. I think he gets on kicks too. When Nate gets on a
Right.
kick, I like try to like encourage it and be positive with it. Even I'm like, this kick's stupid.
like
Yeah.
making a huge or a very nice yard.
Yes.
For a house you don't know.
Oh man.
Oh man.
You gotta have a hobby though.
You gotta have
Let's
hobbies.
be
And that's-
honest.
Nate's a man of many hobbies. That was another surprise I did not see coming. The boy picks up hobbies like people change their clothes. Like, Nate's had a saltwater fish tank. Nate has brewed beer. Nate has taken up biking. Nate took up woodworking. Like, that's just 4. And we've only been married 3 years. Grass, work on the grass.
Right.
It's painting rooms. It's like watching TV. It's listening to podcasts. And you're like, for a short period of time, it was saving money. I really liked that gig.
I keep going with that one.
And when we moved, he did have to get rid of a lot of his hobbies. That was hard. But the man's a man of many hobbies. And they come in, he's like, oh. And it's not just like, we don't just try a hobby. We commit to the hobby. We're married to the hobby. But yeah, no, Nader.
job. All right, books. I'll go first since you guys have each gone first. So when we were engaged, I think, in college, someone told us about the 5 love languages. If you've ever read that, Gary Chapman, who we got to see, he was on the cruise. He spoke at the cruise.
Did you geek out?
Yeah, I did geek out a little bit. I'm like, BJ. Gary Chapman was at the elevator. It's like, there's Gary Chapman. Of course, being, shy Jessica, I couldn't go up and say anything to him. But I was like, oh, there's Gary Chapman. So yes, he's much older than he is in his picture in these. But I also just want to point out, so this is great. If you get a chance to read it, it talks about the 5 love languages, how we receive love. I can't name them all. Acts of service, quality time,
Physical touch, words of affirmation, gift giving.
gift giving. Perfect. See?
I love the love languages.
So yeah, pick this up. And then he also wrote some for children. So 5 love languages of children and teenagers. So which I need to read probably. That would be good.
I should read those. We were talking before this just a little bit, and I was talking about how like it's hard for me to pick up like a book that's going to give you guidance or like advice. I should read those.
Yeah.
I know the 5 love languages, but to actually dig into them and
Yes.
They're unique, and it's so unique. We did that this fall, and I'd be curious how you guys handle it, because Nate's love language is physical touch, which is so common for most men. This summer I took the test, I scored a 0 on physical touch. I can't stand being touched. Like,
And
I don't
that's
want you in my
common.
face, I don't want you touching me, and Sherry was sitting next to me, and she's like crying laughing, because who scores a 0? I do. And she's like, what's Nate's love language? And I look and I go, physical touch. And she thought that was the most hilarious thing.
it kind of is.
Because she's like, so I'm like, I don't know, Sherry, make it work.
And he says in here, like, that's not that uncommon that you're totally separate, different parts. And very rarely are you the same love language, which is kind of fascinating in a way. So I'd recommend that. And I'll just tell you, these 2, and I am sure we can put this one, are in the church library. So 8 to 12, if you want to check them out, you can just come in here and check those out. So
So how do you guys feel with your love languages being different? What's your love language?
My love language is acts of service. His is physical touch, but it's morphed more into words of affirmation. So it's interesting because that is one thing I'm working on is being more affirmative in what I say instead of more critical. It's very easy for me. I love my family. I know Mom and Daddy are probably watching, but we could be a critical family, and that's just part of our the way we were sometimes. And so having kind of grown up that way, I've learned things that I do that I didn't realize I was being critical. And it really took Hannah, seeing disappointment in Hannah's face and not realizing what I had said that made me realize that I was being critical when I thought I was being helpful to remind them to stay humble. How does that sound?
Yeah.
I was just trying to keep them humble. And
She's like,
she just wanted me to affirm her and say,
praise.
yeah, awesome job. And so BJ pointed that out to me. I was just like, whoa, I do that to you all the time. He's like,
I just want you to be humble.
This is a learning moment.
And so acts of service for me, I would say at the beginning of our marriage, he was probably better. When we knew all this stuff, he was probably better about doing it. He just doesn't have a lot of time now to really think. But like when he cooks, that's huge to me because it's a meal I don't have to plan and I don't have to, and I know it's going to taste great. So for me, that's huge. So that's one of the things he does. And he tries, but I'm such a stickler on how the dishwasher is done and the clothes. So he tries. So.
What's your love language then?
Wow, that's a great question. When Nate and I first met, it was definitely like words of affirmation and quality time. And I'm sure quality time, every time I take the test, I score high. When I was a little kid, I'd pick to go with a parent who wasn't going to have more kids with them. Mom's going to the grocery store, Dad's staying home, everyone's staying home, grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
But as I've gotten older, I love gifts, but Nate's not a good gift giver. But it's more acts of service. Like when we took it at this fall, I came up with acts of service. And BJ said it's pretty common that it changes when you go through big life changes.
Yeah.
Weddings, moving halfway across the country, having kids. And so I think we moved. And so by Nate doing things, and he knows that, and so he'll clean. Like when we got back from Omaha, I showed up and my whole house was clean because he knew if I walked home to a dirty house, I would have been like, you didn't. All you did was eat tater tots and you couldn't clean the house. And so, and then, yeah, with physical touch, I, try to be nice. When he says, "We took a rub my back," I took a rub his back. But we still sit on separate couches most of the time because that's how I want it to be.
Oh, I am not a physical touch person either, and that's like his second. And so, yeah, we've had our struggles with that too, where with physical touch, making myself more comfortable. I have a child who is extremely physical touch, and I cringe, and I feel terrible. It's my child, and I love her to death, but I'm just like,
Give me the
too
space.
much physical touch. So.
Yeah, I'm not a cuddler, not a hugger, not really any of it. I like a good hand hug.
Oh. And that's about it.
And I think that's changed the older I've gotten. I'm like, please don't touch me.
I've taken the test before, so I know that mine's quality time. And Steven's is definitely getting gifts.
Yeah.
He just likes getting gifts.
Let's do that.
With my books, so like I said, self-help, not a big person to read self-help. I'm going to try to change that. We'll see. I'm stuck in my house, with my kids. Maybe I need some self-help books.
I think I'm a fixed mindset.
Yeah,
You need to set a
I
growth
know.
mindset.
I know. So I actually have two books, and they're both fiction. One's a children's book, and the other one I actually read last summer. So I'll just mention this one briefly. It's called Millions of Cats. It's definitely it's basically Stephen. Like the old man in this book is Stephen because he goes after and he's on this journey to find the perfect cat for his wife, which I think's adorable, because she thinks they're lonely and so they need a cat. I don't know why she feels like she's lonely if she has her husband, but that aside, so he goes and he is trying to find the perfect cat for his wife, and he runs into millions of cats, but he can't decide which cat is the best cat. So he brings back all the cats, in which case then the wife yells at him because she's like, I don't think we're going to be able to feed all these cats. What are we supposed to do? And then the cats start fighting, and then they eat each other, and then there's one cat. So it's kind of like weird book, but it's a really good book. But I just like how devoted the husband is to finding the perfect cat for his wife.
That is
Cute.
cute.
I like that.
With this book, so I'm a big fan of Jodi Picoult. I think that's how you say her last name.
I think so. I've heard,
Some people-
her pronounce it. I'm
Right.
pretty sure
That's
right.
how I say it.
Well,
So-
somebody tried to correct me once. Are you sure it's
Picoult.
Picoult? I don't know.
It might be Picoult, but I can't
Maybe,
remember. I
yeah.
have to watch that interview.
So what I like to do is every Christmas break, I like to read one of her books.
She has a lot.
Right. She has a lot. And I kind of got onto this kick because my cousin was reading them, and so she's a big fan of it too. And so I actually last summer, I didn't get to read this one over Christmas break. So I said, I'm going to read this one during the summer. So we were on our family vacation. We went to Shadron State Park, and I was reading this, and I will have to say that this is my least favorite, not because of the storyline, but because in this particular book, there's two storylines going on. One storyline is a husband who basically did mercy to his wife and killed her because she had cancer, I think, and she just didn't want to continue living and putting him through that misery of seeing her in this state. And so, trying to figure out, how could you do that to someone you love so much, but also, taking that upon yourself because they've asked you to do it is just so, crazy to think about. So just being so selfless for that other person. And then the other portion of the book, there's two other characters in their relationship, their marriage, where the husband's cheating on the wife. And this is the part that just killed me, because how can you do that to, this person that you've committed yourself to? And the wife in that relationship finds out that he's been cheating, but she tells herself she's not going to leave. If he wants to leave, he can leave, but she will stay for him. And so, again, putting your own needs aside because you've made that commitment to that other person. Again, I did not like this book because of different reasons with that portion of their relationship and that commitment from that one husband. But to see that selflessness from the other characters in the book was crazy. So again, not self-help books, but both fiction books, and they've spoken, I guess, to my marriage and to encourage me in my own marriage to be more selfless and like, how can I help my husband? So.
Good. Okay. Well, Nate and I have only been married 2.5-ish years. And so it's been a roller coaster. We also moved and had 8 puppies.
Which is crazy.
Which is so ridiculous. Only something like that would happen to us. But at the turn of the year, there was just a lot of different things going on and just fatigue. And so I don't know why and how, but the naked marriage, that's what it's called, the naked marriage, fell into my hands. And they have a podcast.
Who's that by?
Dave and Ashley Willis. Dave's a funny dude. Ashley is a mother of 3 boys, so I like just feel for her and all the testosterone she has to deal with in a day. But they talk a lot about just intimacy, what intimacy is. And if my friend Katie is watching this, she will tell you right now, vulnerability has never been my strength. In college, like, you just need to be vulnerable. I'm like, or we can just not worry about it and it'll go away. That's not how it works, Cassie. It's like, vulnerability is beautiful. And I'm like, vulnerability is stupid. So it's something I've always struggled with, like weakness and not looking strong and independent and bubbly and all those things. If I'm not showing those things, like, there's something wrong. And so Nate also doesn't like to read. So if you ask Nate, reading's great for the knowledge you gain, but like the act of reading is no fun to him. But he loves a good podcast. And so you talked about seasons, and I'm pretty sure it was this podcast, this book. I was listening to it. I just kind of jumped where it was, and it talked about the seasons of marriage, the falls and the winters, and what they all look for. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm so cold. And he's like, what?
Well, here,
He's
let me hug you to get me that physical touch.
And it was just a moment. I don't even know. And I can't even think about why I was so upset and so frustrated. Like, he'd walk in the house, like, I don't even want to look at you anymore. And he's like, I'm sorry. And like, just series of things, and school and foot and all these different things. And it just really spoke to me. And so I'm like, I think I need to read this book. So Nate, like, listened to the whole podcast.
Because he cares about you.
Because he cares. The other one I have to share later. And they just talk about everything. I mean, they talk about intimacy and sex and God-fearing relationships because they're a Christian marriage, and raising children and seasons of marriage. And they bring specialists in and they talk about all these things. And I was just mind blown. But it's something that, to go into our spiritual realm, Nate and I can both listen to the podcast whenever we can, at work, while we're in the car, whatever. And then we can talk about it. And it brings in great talking points. Because one of the things the male author is very open with is he had a porn addiction. And that's something Nate and I never even talked about. And not that it was a big deal for either of us, but that's a big topic that a lot of people just push aside and push aside and push aside. And so you might not even know it could be impacting your marriage, and just different things like that. And so I was like, what's going on? And that's just been a blessing. Their podcast is really good. Nate says it doesn't feel like it takes away his man card, because at least once they will bring up the word sex, and the guy's like, now all the men just tuned in, and he's like, and I do. It's like, hello. But it is just an interesting listen. It was an interesting read. It talks just, again, about being intimate, and they both write from their point of views, which is so unique. It'll be one topic, and she'll talk about it. She rambles and rambles and rambles, and then in like a page, she's like, this is my thoughts. And
So
it just,
the podcast called
the podcast is also called The Naked Marriage.
I'm gonna look this up.
It's a good
Yeah,
podcast
sounds
listen.
good.
And so that's been a big book for us. And Nate and I said, we talk, out of all of his friends, he was one of the first to get married. Out of all of my friends, we were one of the last to get married. So my friends deal a lot with me being like, I don't know what to do about this. What do you do about this? What do you do about this? What do you do about this? And his friends will come to him sometimes and ask him a question about marriage. And he's like, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to figure it out too. But, we talk about like a group and like, oh, they're only in their first year married. Like, and we could talk about different things. I probably would have divorced you. Like if we would have had to do that, or these different things, and where we are now compared to where we were when we moved here even, you don't see that growth. But this has been a huge blessing for our marriage. Just the discussions and springboards, and it automatically is Christ-centered, which is good because it just helps. It automatically puts God in the center of everything. And so that's my book and my Christian.
I like that, though. I like
Yeah.
the podcast plus That is a great.
And I didn't binge listen to all the podcasts. I just started off where we were when
Yeah.
I got into it, and I'd be like laughing. This guy Dave tells these stories, and I'd be in bed like crying because I can see Nate doing it, and I'm like, I gotta read you the stories. Stories like I've already heard this. It's on the podcast.
Aw.
So there is some cross pollinating, but it's a good. It's been fun. It's been fun listening to it. We probably started doing that around February, and they're part of the EXO marriage things, and they do like conferences and stuff. Apparently you can do it at home, but I tried to pay for it once and it was being weird, so I just gave up. So I love you, Nate, but I didn't love you enough to keep dealing with it, trying to charge my card.
Right.
Neat.
Yeah.
I just love that idea because podcast is something. I'm older, I guess. I just kind of found the podcast realm like 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and I love podcasts. At work, I'll listen to one or two. Yeah, probably not too racy. When no one's in the library, I'll listen to some more racy ones in the sense of racy in marriage, like not like
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
it's okay.
not like the others.
It's okay to be intimate. I learned that in this book.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
I'm gonna put that on my list.
Yeah, look, there's vulnerability, and I was like, I'm not reading this book.
You're like, I don't want to deal with that.
My life's perfect. I'm perfect. Give back.
Oh. So Stephen and I, we actually, I think it was through his Kindle, I don't want to say program, but Kindle goals, was to do a couple devotion book of some sort. And so I would have used that, except we've only done maybe 2 devotions. And then the goal has kind of like, I don't know if it's disappeared or we just haven't done it like, except for maybe the 2 times we did it in December. So I hope no one from his Kindle group's watching this. But I think the thing that keeps our faith going, and this is going to be a huge shock to everyone, we listen to a lot of Christian music. And so, like, I know it's crazy, but we'll listen to it in the car, which is weird to think, like, I haven't listened to top 20 like that type of radio station, I think, since we got married. And if you would have asked me, 7 years ago, before we got married, if I would just be listening to basically straight up Christian radio, I would have been like, no, like, I keep everything in the mix. No, I don't really. So in the car, it's Christian radio. We listen to it when we're cooking or when we're cleaning in the house or when it's no TV time for the kids and we need, just something in the background while they're playing. And so I just like listening to the messages is kind of something that, we've really, I guess, kept alive for our faith type of journey in our marriage. And also just like, because he's doing music at the church, I get to participate in the praise team, which is a blessing because I love to sing and I love the songs that we're singing. So I'd love to say that we do more devotions, but we will get better in the future, maybe. So, yeah.
I think for us, we've kind of been all over in our marriage, kind of what we've tried to incorporate our faith. I'm sure we're not the only church work family who feel like that is one area that we have really slipped in is we so much, and the way I look at it is, in a way for him it's like taking his job home.
Yeah.
And it's not always like that for him. He enjoys being with us and being that part of our family, but at the same time, when he's been vulnerable or helping people out with problems and then, bringing it home and then having to also continue to do that. Sometimes that it is difficult. And so we've done family devotions, we've done that kind of stuff. We've tried to do a couple devotions before. Talk about vulnerability, that is something for him that he struggles with when we pray. And so, but that is probably where we're at right now, is just trying to really pray together and taking time and setting that time aside because I think for me, one of the things, I love it. I love praying with him. For me, that is a time when I feel really close to him. And so for me, it's great. But for him, I know it's a struggle just because he doesn't want to be judged when he's praying. And while I don't think I would judge him ever for any kind of prayer, I know he struggles with that. I hope he doesn't get upset with me for telling this, because that's being vulnerable for him. So that, but he has made a commitment. That was one of the things he took away from the cruise that he wanted to work on. And so once COVID-19 hit, I will be honest, it kind of just threw everything in for a loop. But now we're trying to get back into it. One of our routines we fall into is after we tape this podcast, he and I usually go and get takeout, and then we'll pray and watch Survivor together.
We watch Survivor after too.
We don't. But I love that. That is so cute.
So I know it's just kind
I
of,
love
if we
that.
didn't plan it, it just kind of happened that way,
Yeah.
because Hannah made food and the kids ate it all, and there was no food for us. So hey, we went out. What are we going to watch? Oh, Survivor's on. Why don't we pray before? Okay. And so that's something I hope will happen, continue to happen for us. Maybe not the takeout part, but
Although that's a bonus.
yeah, it is.
You don't have
It
to
is.
cook. You can just.
So anyway, that for us, praying for me, I think there's nothing better you can do in your relationship than pray together. It shows your needs, your wants, and it is very vulnerable. But it's also showing that unity that you have with Christ. The three of you are in and talking with each other. And the same as studying the scriptures together. And I wish we were better at that. And I hope many of you are. But being in scripture and just letting God talk to you too, and just being that three that we talked about last week, how important that is. Because you're a sinner, your husband's a sinner, but thankfully God's not. And he loves you both unconditionally, and to have his love and having that entwined in your marriage and being the strong cord that holds it all together, I think is so. Yeah, if you can pray, read you've got some new books you could go through if you wanted to, but you don't even need that. Just take a verse and talk about, hey, what's this mean to you? And that's why I love the podcast, because that is so easy for you guys to do whenever you have time during the day, and then talk about it. I think that's great.
I'm jealous of the prayer thing too, though. Like sitting down and praying with your husband. We would never do that. Like, okay, you pray before you eat,
Right.
but otherwise it's something that you should do. Like, I'll go to bed and I'll just think about things, I'll talk to God, but I don't think we're not making it a priority, like even just to set an example for my kids to see, so.
It's interesting because one of our kids came down so they had gone to bed, and they came down and we were praying, and I'll be honest, it felt awkward, like, oh, they're going to hear us praying, and I realized, that's probably a good thing. But there is an awkwardness to it at the beginning. Same with studying, like kind of what you said, there is an awkwardness to it, and that's okay. Like, that's why I just want you to know that's okay. You'll get through it, and eventually the lines of communication will open up. But yeah, I think being willing to be in the awkward is always hard, but necessary in marriage.
I think you brought up a big point. You talked about just going out together. And I don't have children, so Nate and I are always together.
I saw you guys walking the subway the other day.
That's us getting out on town. But Nate and I, since January, he's always, let's make sure we're doing something. And little things can be big things too. And so that idea of taking time just for the two of you. Again, we don't have children, so we don't have to worry about that.
We never have time for two.
And I think about my parents,
It's
like
okay,
I never
it'll
saw my
change.
parents just go off and do things. And they did, but they didn't. And that's something I'm so thankful that we have taken time to do.
Well, and like with Steven and me, we just have a hard time asking people for help too.
Yeah.
So like our grandparents or their grandparents or our parents are not around where we can't say, hey, can you watch them for a couple of hours? We're going to go out and eat. Or, it's hard for us to be like, we're taking this time and we are going to find someone to watch the kids. Only because it's like, for me, partly, it's like I feel this guilt of like, I don't want someone else to feel like they have to watch my kids, So it'll change.
I'm sure Uncle Nate could take them.
I know. Well, and I'm sure people would be willing to, but in my head, it's like I don't want to be inconveniencing them.
You're going to have a whole list on the bottom of this.
I know.
Like,
Yeah, I know. Right.
Please leave them with Nate.
I will be honest with you, Hannah does call Eliza her best friend. So
Eliza calls Hannah her best friend. Well, it was
Which cracks me up.
it was funny. We were like, so you had mentioned we should just have like a game night or something and sneak over or whatever.
Yeah.
Or Steven had made some comment. I was like, well, we should invite BJ and Jessica. And then Steven's like, can we get away with just BJ and Jessica coming over though? Because if Eliza sees them, she's going to expect Hannah. And after, if you have Hannah, like
We're a
that
big
would be the
family.
limit. That would be the 10 people limit. And I was like, oh my goodness. We just need to have an adult night and Eliza will just get over it. But I'm glad that.
Or send Eliza, just let's a little
Right,
walk.
we'll just have Eliza go over to your house.
But I love that because
Uh.
in every stage, and I'm sure if you are older, maybe you have kids in college, or you too have to find those times to be together. Whether because it is easy. I remember when we were newlyweds and we didn't have any kids. It is amazing how much you fill your time when you don't take the time just to do stuff like intentionally. And then when you have little kids, oh my goodness, it's a
Your
whole
world
nother-
revolves around them. So
yes. Yeah, that is, yes. And I will be honest, having a teenager who can watch the other kids now is amazing and wonderful that we
and
have
I'm
that
glad that you
freedom.
take advantage of it.
And we
Like,
do take advantage of it. Thankfully, our firstborn tends to be pretty responsible, even though her siblings don't always agree.
Most firstborns are.
And that's why I'm okay with Eliza having her as her best friend because I'm like, she's a good role model. So,
So, yeah.
In 10 years, Eliza will be by herself, watching everybody, telling them what to do.
she already does when we're already there. She's very bossy.
So I also just be like, I'm going to my room.
So I hope you got something from our conversation tonight. I'm sure we could go on and talk all night
Yeah,
about
we could.
different aspects of marriage. It is the relationship I think that really defines so much of our lives because this is our person. So we'll be back next week. I don't know yet what the topic is, but I'm sure it'll be interesting. And
You're going to want to be there.
thank you for coming. Again, stay healthy, stay safe, and what's the government? Stay connected.
Which is why we're here.
That's why we're here. Yay, that all tied together.
Look at
Good
us.
job. All right, thank you.
Yep. Bye, ladies.
Good night.